and welcome to Lowell Oral History Project. And this afternoon, we have none other than Marilyn Cahoon and Shirley Weeks Nest. I can't pronounce that last name.
Nestor.
Shirley Weeks Nestor. And these two ladies are sisters, and they grew up around Lowell, and they have a lot to say about our history. Hi, Marilyn. Thanks for coming. Marilyn's in the red and Shirley's in the white. So I do need to ask, because you both look very young, which one's the older one then?
I am.
Are you? Okay. Okay, just by a couple years? Or?
3 years.
By 3 years. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Now, did both of you, were you both born in Lowell or?
Both of us born at Lez's nursing home.
Lez's
right here in Lowell.
And where is that located at? Where was it?
Straight on East Main Street.
Yeah, East Main Street, kind of towards the end of this village on the south side.
Is that building still there?
Yes, it is.
No.
It's a little small one-story house.
Okay. Is it white or is it blue or?
I think
it's white.
It's white now.
It has a carport on it now, which it didn't have back then.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, there's several people from Lowell were born there.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did you both go to the Lowell schools, or what happened from there? That you girls were both born in Lowell, and then you grew up at what house?
On the farm on Pinckney Road.
Oh, on Pinckney Road.
Mm-hmm. In Ionia County.
And what did you guys grow on the farm?
Oh my gosh. Wheat, corn,
hay. They had
animals.
An orchard.
We had an orchard too.
Apple orchard.
Potatoes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we grew up.
It sounds like a large farm.
120 acres.
That's a large farm.
For back then.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many kids were there in the family?
Just us
Just
two.
us two.
What?
We did the girls and the boys' work.
Wow.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah. Wow, you girls. So, when you went to school, you went to a one-room schoolhouse at that time, or?
Yes, Cutler School. It was a mile away from our house.
And is it still there?
No.
Does it still stand?
No, the building's gone.
Okay.
I went there from kindergarten through the 8th grade.
Okay.
And I went there from kindergarten through the 7th grade. The 8th grade, I went to day school, which was a little over a mile the other way.
Oh, okay. Why did you go there instead of?
Because in my 6th grade and 7th grade, we had several changes of teachers. In one year, I had 3 different teachers, and my mom was concerned that I wasn't going to be ready to come to Lowell High School. I wouldn't have my studies learned good enough.
Okay.
So I went to day school, and ironically, I had a teacher by the name of Weeks also. I never dreamed I was going to marry a Weeks.
And then when you were done, so both of you at 9th grade, did you come into the Lowell schools then, to the Lowell area?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right, there's, when I started, I had to walk about a mile to catch the bus.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of a hardship in the winter. There were no other houses between the stop and my house, so I came into Lowell and lived with my aunt and uncle, Gladys and Vic Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
So while you were going to school, you said, okay, I need to come in and stay with you because of the long walk and the hardship.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Uh-huh.
Where was that house at?
Do you remember Vic's Auto Service?
Yeah.
I do not.
And they're at Center and Main Street.
So is that the old rounded tire that I remember?
Yes.
Yes.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and their house was right next to it.
Oh my goodness.
That's where I stayed.
So they let you go there, and then your poor Shirley was left behind to do your chores at the farm?
Yeah.
What was a typical day like for you as kids on the farm? What kind of, what, you had to milk cows? What,
No.
you collect eggs, or what did you do?
We had to help with the
eggs.
chickens,
Yeah.
check, water the chickens and feed them, and collect the eggs and help clean the eggs.
Yeah.
And because we used to bring them into town. Back in those days, you used to bring them into town and exchange them for maybe flour, sugar, or something. We can talk
Was
about
that
that
kind of
later.
like every Saturday night when they, was that kind of a tradition when everybody came in on Saturday nights, or was that?
Yeah, it usually was on Saturday,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
it usually was on Saturday, yeah. But that's part of the day then. But we also was helping Dad out in the field too. And I was between 7.5, 8 years old, I was driving the John Deere tractor. And my dad for doing the haying, and he would be out on the wagon. We would be pulling a hay loader, and but the tractor was with a hand clutch, and my mother said, "Oh my gosh, she just had a fit." But my dad said, "I'd rather have her than a teenager from the city, I'll tell you that."
Did you do that?
But I loved it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Marilyn also drove tractor.
Yeah.
So did you slaughter your own?
Pardon me?
Did you slaughter your own animals and stuff for?
My
For meat?
dad, I remember my dad doing hogs.
the
Yeah.
hogs?
Right. But after that, I think they took them away.
They took them someplace to have it taken care of.
I asked this to one other interviewer too. Did you have an outhouse when you went to the?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh yes.
She was lucky. They put plumbing in when she went, but
Yeah.
I love bringing that up
Well-
because there's good stories about that.
See,
Oh,
I was born in 1932, and they did not have electricity, and my parents did not have a well, and electricity was brought in 39, and but they were bringing water from across the road. The grandparents' home and barn were across the road, so they would bring water over in milk cans for that. And then they had a cistern in the basement, which they could use that for wash water.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
What
can
kind
you,
of cars did you drive, or what in your early days? Did you have an old Model T Ford or something like that, or was
No, the one that I remember was a Pontiac,
Okay.
but I don't know. That was I don't know what year it was, but
the one I remember is a 37 Plymouth.
yes.
Yeah, the 4-door Plymouth, because I got to drive that. Dad let me drive that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with a clutch?
Yeah. It was.
You had to use the old
Yeah.
clutch thing, yeah.
Yeah. We had to shift it and
Yeah.
go up a hill, and I did real fine going up real high hill. But then I was so excited turning in the driveway because I knew my mom was watching. I killed the engine. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else.
Well, they didn't have driver's training back
We didn't
then.
have driver's training.
No, they
Besides
didn't.
that, I was much too young to be driving a car, to be truthful, at that time. But we used to drive out in the fields, and
Yeah, that's where Mom taught me how to drive.
education
in the
was.
hayfield.
Right.
But she always sat with her hand on the door handle, and I didn't like that.
I know she was. She was still like that when she was 100.
Yeah. So then when we could actually drive on the road, then my dad would always impress on me, if you happen to go off the edge of the pavement, do not bring it back real fast. Just keep going and then gently get it back on the pavement.
Yeah. And another thing was, if it was slippery roads, Dad would always say, if you get down on that highway, M21, and it's icy, drive with your right wheel off the pavement. And
I do that today.
Yeah. Yeah. But in addition to all the different farm chores that we talked about, there was gardening and helping to can, because my mother and grandma canned everything they could get their hands on.
So since you didn't have any electricity there in 32, you probably had a root cellar then and all that. You have a
Yeah,
root cellar to store your
Yeah.
rutabagas and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
in okay.
yeah, they had apples down there, and they also raised potatoes to sell, and we would help pick, when they harvested the potatoes, we'd help pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you ladies enjoy sewing or baking pies? And you know, those are the things that I'm growing up and seeing my grandchildren not knowing what that is.
Yeah, well, when we were old enough, we were in 4-H, very active in 4-H, and that's where I learned how to sew.
Okay.
And and then we made a lot of clothing out of feed sacks. They had feed sacks had a different prints on them, little flowers or stripes or whatever. So when our dad would go to the store to get mash for the chickens, then we would go along and pick out what ones we wanted.
We'd take turns.
So I made my skirt, 4-H skirt, out of a feed sack, and then my first 4-H dress out of a feed sack. And I remember we had to write down how much it cost us, and the cost of the buttons was more than
The material,
Oh,
because it was a feed sack.
yeah.
So did they have a yearly 4-H fair back then?
In Ionia County,
Ionia.
we were
Oh,
part of the Ionia Free Fair. That's where we exhibited our things.
They used to call those skirts broomstick skirts because they were just gathered at the waist with just a waistband.
I didn't know that.
Oh, that's another good.
Yeah. I think one of the first projects we had to do was to put a hem in a tea towel. That's just a regular dish towel. We had to do one by hand and then one by sewing machine, and had to sew it real straight and everything. And then another of the projects, we had to learn how to mend a sock. And then,
With the light bulb?
well, we had a
wooden
wooden
one.
egg.
Oh, a wooden one. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we had.
Because I remember my Marie always had the light bulb.
Uh-huh.
She was always
Oh, yeah.
out there doing it. She would use the light bulb.
Yeah.
So, and then we had to exhibit these things at the fair. Well, we didn't want to exhibit just an old sock with a hole in, so we would take a new sock and cut a hole in it and then mend it. And so we'd have it. It would be a nice project.
Yeah. For sure, you would never put an old sock. Oh, good Lord, no.
But I think the last year, of course, I was, I don't know how old I was, a teenager in high school. But the last project I made was a suit, like a business suit that you might wear as a secretary in an office. And then he had the competition at Ionia, and I won the first prize. So then I got to go to Michigan State to model it,
Oh, that's big.
but I didn't do very good there
That's
because I
fine.
was too shy.
Now, who took you? Did your dad take you? when you had to go model that?
I think we went down with the 4-H leader because we stayed, in a dorm. We had to stay for 2 or 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
And then another one that I was involved in was gardening. And then they had a competition where you would have to judge potatoes.
How do you judge a potato?
Well, you wanted to have a first class potato, so you didn't want to have any specks. You wanted it to be a certain size, and it was timed. You had to go through and judge so many. That was part of the competition. Another part was identify insects that might be in your garden. And also you had to identify varieties of vegetables, not just a carrot, but what variety of carrot. And all of that was timed. And so I did quite well at that at the county level, so I got to go, the first time was to Detroit to compete, and that was a big deal for this country girl
I bet.
to go to Detroit and stay in a hotel.
Ooh.
And then another time we got to go to Washington, D.C. Another trip was to New Orleans.
Wow.
And so it was just a
Did
wonderful.
you take the train to New Orleans then?
No, it was always by bus.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
and I did the same thing with vegetables.
Yeah.
I went at the county, and then I went to the state, and then won the trip to New York City.
Wow.
And we were in New York City, and got to go. Oh my gosh, we're at Times Square and Statue of Liberty, the United Nations building. We saw at Radio City Music Hall. We saw the play The King and I, and Yul Brynner was the person that was there.
Goodness.
So that I never forgot. That was such a thrill.
Wow.
And this is again a country
Well
kid
traveled.
seeing
Well
all
traveled.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
And this
Yeah.
and all that happened before you were 18.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I was
Yeah.
probably in 9th or 10th grade.
What a beautiful
Because when I
Yeah.
came home, Mom and Dad had a TV. That's when we got our first TV. Yeah.
Little black and white one, right?
Well, kinda. Well, maybe a little bit bigger. Uncle Vic's was one of the first ones.
So the high school you went to was the old one over here?
Right here at Lowell on
Okay.
Monroe.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, when it was on Monroe.
Right.
Yeah.
But when I went to high school, I had the school bus stop to pick me
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
Were you a
Okay.
senior, Marilyn, when the school bus? Didn't you
Yeah.
ride the first bus that Lowell
Yeah.
came out our
yeah.
way?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So I was lucky.
Now you didn't stay in town like your
No, I
sister
didn't have to stay in town. I
Okay.
could be home.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So when I went to high school, it was a real social shock to me.
Oh, no kidding.
Really?
Oh my
Because
gosh.
going to country school, most of the time I was the only one in my class. And when I started in kindergarten, there were only 8 students in the whole school. And so, so then by the time I got in high school, so socially it was, kind of a shock. And I don't know, the town kids stayed together and the country kids stayed together, but we're all friends now. So
What year did you graduate?
50,
50, and you were
1950.
52?
53.
Okay, I was 1 year old then.
But then by the time I was a junior, I decided I wanted to be involved in something, so I decided I wanted to be in band, but I wanted to be a majorette.
Oh.
I didn't know how to do twirling or anything, but that wasn't required. But you had to know how to play an instrument. So Mr. Jessup was our instructor. And there was a trombone available from the school, so I took a few lessons on that. And I did know how to read music because we had had music lessons.
We played the accordion when we were kids, the piano accordion. Mom had us have those lessons.
So everybody sing in your family? Did you sing songs?
We shared the accordion, the two of us did.
So I learned how to play the trombone enough, and then I could try out to be majorette, so which I was.
You did get the majorette.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You remember how many were in your graduating classes?
I think there was 71 in mine.
How about you,
Yours?
Shirley?
Probably,
About the same?
yeah. I know when we started out with 120
Oh, really?
in the 9th grade, but it went down.
And our next year, our class will be having a reunion for 70th year,
We're
And
50th this year.
and
Wow.
we're making plans on that.
Oh, okay.
And we get together once in a great while. And for our 65th, we had a really good turnout. So,
Where are you guys looking at going? So you're looking at, because everybody graduated from Lowell, you're looking at like staying in Lowell for your graduation party, or
Yeah,
excuse
well-
me, your class reunion. That's right, your class reunion.
Yeah, they
Oh, my
made
goodness.
a couple weeks ago. They met. I wasn't able to attend, but I had talked with them before, and they already have plans, and they're going to use the fellowship hall at the Nazarene Church. It's all one level,
Yes.
easy to get in, nice parking area. And of course, it will be daytime as a luncheon because a lot don't drive at night anymore. And we'll have a catered lunch there. So that's what the plans are.
It sounds like it's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah.
And we had our class reunion right here at the community room.
Oh.
And 4 of my classmates, we organized it. We all live right here,
Oh.
which is so neat.
How do you like that here?
I just am, it's a gift from God. I love it. I am so thankful that I live here. I moved here a year ago last May, and my husband just passed away in April, so I'm so thankful to be here. I lived in Cascade since '63.
Oh, goodness. Yes. I know that Robin and I were on our way in today, was talking about, because our names are already in here too.
Oh.
We're looking forward to being
It's
the next
just-
generation here.
It's just such a wonderful, I've never heard anybody that lives here that's not happy. It's just, what a wonderful thing that was started
Well, it's
here.
a community. You have all that community support.
Oh my gosh, you do, and
That's nice.
it's amazing because there's so many of your friends are here.
Definitely. That's what
And
we
so
were
many
laughing
to
about. All of
reminisce
us that
with
grew up
of your
together,
past.
We'll be here together.
Yeah.
We'll be here.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about your heritage? Like, grandparents came over from what country, or any of that information?
Well, our grandmother, our mother's mother, came from Switzerland, Schwarzenegg, Switzerland, and with her parents and her siblings. And so we're related to the Althouses.
Oh.
Grandma's name was Althouse.
Yeah, Elise Althouse. They called her Lizzie.
You remember what year they came over?
Oh
Early
man.
1900s, or probably?
I know what it is, but I can't remember it.
But I don't have it written down,
That's
sorry.
fine. That's fine.
That's fine.
And then your great grandmother Rosetta came afterwards. That she's a sister to my grandma. She came afterwards, and my mother always tells how they went to see her. My mother went with her mother, and they went to see Rosetta. And she said they were all crying, and I couldn't figure out why they were crying. But then she says Aunt Rosetta brought out the chocolates. And then that was okay.
They were just all so happy to see each
Yeah.
other. That's why they were crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're talking about Dale Croft's grandmother, correct? That
Yeah.
you said that.
Yeah.
to somebody
Great.
else.
Yeah, the all house.
Great
They all came
grandmother.
out.
We're actually related, yes.
And
Yeah.
what sister married Wittenbach?
Anna.
Anna, her sister Anna married a Wittenbach.
Oh, okay. That's,
So, the Cross, Ross, Wittenbachs,
They're
Urshas,
all-
Wingars were all the Swiss
Yeah.
heritage that you're part of. Yeah.
And then we think about where From is, Flat River Ministries
Yes.
is where my mom's grandma and grandpa lived.
Yes.
The house was right there, and there is an old pine tree yet. There's just a thin old pine tree. And that tree is in the family picture. You can see that same tree. So that's
my
what's
goodness.
left there
Yeah.
oh my
of
goodness.
all those years.
And then the barn was across the road.
Uh-huh.
It was across 21. Can you imagine?
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
It is.
But then on our dad's side, by the way, our last name was Rickert. I don't think we mentioned that earlier.
What heritage is that now? Is that English or
Some English.
German?
That or it could be German. I'm not. Haven't traced that back. But our great grandparents came from Canada. That's where they were. A lot of the families went to Canada and then came into Michigan. And so then they eventually came into Michigan in Keene Township and bought land for a farm. And
And there's Rickert Road off of Pinckney Road.
Where the old farm. Now is the old farmhouse still there?
yes, my son and daughter-in-law. Well, this was our grandparents,
Okay.
but actually the great-grandparents' farmhouse, part of it is there. I think they
On
had,
Rickert Road.
yeah, on Rickert
Okay.
Road.
On Rickett Road.
Yeah, but that's another family that owns that. But our grandparents' farmhouse is on Pinckney Road, and that's still there. My son and daughter-in-law own that. They have 40 acres of the farm yet.
And
That's
then what's
still,
the house across the road, Mom?
Where we grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
and
that's
that,
where you grew up.
yeah, and that's where we grew up.
And that's still standing.
Yeah, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
all totally remodeled and added on to, so
Okay.
you wouldn't know it was the same place. But when our parents were married, before they were married, they ordered this house from the catalog. It was an Aladdin home, and it was a pre-cut home, and it came from Bay City by rail to Saranac.
To the
And then-
depot.
Yeah, and then our dad picked it up and brought it there and built the house. And it was one bedroom, living room, dining room, kitchen, and a washroom.
Do you ever remember what the price was by chance?
I don't remember. I have it. I have the papers. I could have brought that, but
Oh, that's cool.
yeah. But it was a cute little bungalow type of house, English bungalow.
Just like the Sears and Roebuck catalog, because they ordered houses
Yeah,
right out of that, too.
right.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And then after we came along, then they added on, and the kitchen became our bedroom, and they added on a kitchen and a sun.
Go back to that time we were talking about not having our own well until, you know, we were little kids. We were, you know, grade school kids, right?
Yeah.
But we have to realize my mom was hauling water from across the road at Grandma's house, bringing it up in cream cans and using that. She had diapers, you know, you were washing diapers and taking care of raising kids, and it's amazing. You think of all that they used to do.
Yeah, very labor intensive.
And
Yeah,
I remember we used to have an ice box,
Yeah.
and then we'd come to Lowell and get was it 50 pounds?
I think
50
so.
pound block of ice, and I can remember seeing that right on the front bumper of the car to bring it back home.
Oh, you put it on, tied it
Yeah.
to the front bumper of the car?
Yeah.
We always say in the hot July, you know, you probably lost a third of it. I don't
Oh,
know.
my gracious.
And then when you get home, you take a gunny sack and wrap around it to carry it in,
Yeah,
drop it in the ice box.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when the ice melts, then you have a pan underneath, and if you don't empty it, you're going to have a big flood. So Dad drilled a hole in the floor, put copper tubing up, and run that down to the basement drain.
Oh, to the cistern, did it go to your cistern that you talked about? So it would drain into the cistern?
No,
No.
just into another drain.
Okay.
another drain.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Ingenuity.
Yeah.
I guess we should, another thing we could say, you didn't have a forced air furnace back then. In the little house where we grew up, there was just a regular wood stove that you put wood in to keep warm. And getting up in the morning, going in the kitchen to get a drink of water, and you had a dish, a pail with a dipper, and that would be frozen in the morning. So you couldn't get a drink of water.
So you guys got in bed at night and you moved your feet around, right? They warm up the seats when you were little?
Rolled up high, warm. Yeah,
sometimes
that
we-
was just actually in the room where that stove was just outside of our bedroom, to be truthful. It was just outside, because that was in the dining room.
But sometimes Mom put a hot water bottle in our bed.
Yes, to warm us up, right.
Yeah.
Bless her heart.
Sometimes we could slip over and slide
Well,
in.
we talk about that in the museum when they were traveling. Did you make warm potatoes and put in your pockets like when you were walking a mile to school as a kid to keep warm in the winter?
We never did that. No.
They talked about they would warm, potatoes up and stick them in their pockets and they could put their hands on
That
them.
was a good idea. I never thought of
If you were
that.
growing potatoes, it would have been perfect.
That's right.
We did. We had these bins of potatoes out in the barn. Yeah. Another thing we were thinking about is walking to school. You know, you didn't have insulated clothes. Our boots were just regular rubber boots that pulled up about this high. And they just went over your shoes. I remember getting to school and packing the snow, getting it out of your boots before you could go into school. Guess we were tough.
Now, did your one-room school have the big potbelly stove in the middle, or
In the back. It was kind of in the
But
back.
it was more like a furnace type, wasn't the old-fashioned
It was a
pot-
big round type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you had to put wood in it.
Yeah, but I can remember taking potatoes there, and we could, when you opened up the door, there was kind of like a little shelf there, and you could set the potatoes there and bake them for lunch.
I bet you that smelled good though. I still love a good smell of baked potato.
Wow.
Yeah, because we didn't have hot lunches then.
No. You
That
brought,
was your hot lunch then.
Yeah.
but we did, I remember my favorite was when sugar wasn't rationed. Of course, that's another story too, of the war of things being rationed, but my grandma would make with butter and brown sugar sandwich. Oh my gosh, that was so good.
Yeah.
Wow.
It
But I bet
was.
you that was good though.
Yeah.
I bet you
Yeah.
that was good when you don't have sugar.
Yeah.
I bet you that was great.
When we were little kids, my mom was diagnosed with TB, and so she was hospitalized for 13 months. So we went and lived and slept at Grandma and Grandpa's house across the road, and we saw our dad every day. We see Mom. At first, we couldn't be up with her. We could only wave at her. I think back now how difficult that was for her to see her children. But then we got to go up and be with
Yeah.
her later.
Yeah.
But once a week, did we go there once a week?
I think so.
How
Yeah.
old were you
Seems
guys
like-
when she went in there?
Pardon?
How
How old were you two when they,
I was 7.
7?
Yeah, it
You
was.
were little.
Yeah, I was 10.
Where was the hospital at?
It right on Fuller. What do they call that hospital now?
It was
Blodgett?
no.
Oh no, it's
Spectrum?
on.
What?
Butterworth?
No.
No, it's
It
on.
was Kent Community for a while.
It, you know, right
I
on
don't
Fuller,
know.
just off the,
Over
It's,
there.
right
yeah.
by Kent County Jail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's an
The
older.
Veterans
St. Mary's?
Facility?
No,
No.
there's an
No.
older brick building back there, and that's where Sunshine Hospital. That's
Oh,
the
really?
one.
Okay.
I always remember as a kid this huge pond that had these big goldfish in. And we would be playing outside when we were unable to see Dad or go up to be with Mom, and we'd be playing right outside. I mean, who would be able to do that nowadays with just leave
Yeah,
your
two little
kids
girls
like that?
outside unattended.
That's unheard of.
Or walking to school. I mean, kindergarten walking in our you know, we were out of sight. Life was so different back then.
Yeah. But our mother, when she was a teenager, her sister, who was 19 at the time, died of TB. And then they checked all the family, and they said that my mother had a shadow on her lung, and so at that time they sent her to Howell. That was the TB sanitarium, state TB sanitarium, and so she was there just a few months really, and then she was able to come back. And by that time, they lived in Keene Township at that time, but then when she came back from Howell, her parents had bought a house in Lowell. And it's the house that's right next to Kaiser's parking lot on the east side of there.
Oh, okay. So that would be Paul Showboat's old house, Erickson's. Didn't he live right next door too? Yeah, because Kaiser's, which is now, used to be the Showboat restaurant,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
And Paul Erickson, that was his house,
Oh,
right
I
next
don't-
to there.
To
I
the
don't
east?
think so.
No?
No,
Uh-uh. I don't think
No.
so.
Because they would have bought this. My grandparents would have purchased it in the late 20s.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up. That's
Yeah.
interesting, very interesting.
And then
That's 730 East Main.
and apparently that over there where the bowling alley is, that school was open at that time because my grandpa kept the fires going over there in the furnace.
Jeez.
He had that job, and then
Okay, cool stuff.
another job that he had was cleaning the streets. Now he had a cart and a brush
A 2-wheel cart.
and a
he's-
brush, and that's
Oh
how
my
they
goodness.
cleaned the main street of Lowell.
Oh my
From one
goodness.
end to the other.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do you have a picture of that somewhere? or-
No, we never did have a picture of it.
Oh
We
my
might have
goodness.
that in our
Yeah,
collection somewhere.
I'd never,
I'll keep
I'd
that.
never. Who got married first?
I did.
You
Yeah.
did.
54.
At 54.
Uh-huh.
And so were you married in Lowell or did you?
At the Lowell Methodist Church.
Oh, in 54. And where did you live then?
Well, then we lived for a few months with my mother-in-law. She was a widow, and she lived in her farmhouse over on Grand River Avenue. over in South Boston area. And then after, that was in June. And then by March, we were looking at a farm in on Tanis Road outside of Clarksville.
Okay.
And we were able to purchase that. And that's where we moved in 55. And I still live there.
I was going to ask you, is that the very same place that you're at? I see.
Yeah, my husband passed away almost 8 years in January.
Oh, my
But-
goodness.
So I'm still living there.
And you, Shirley, were you married shortly after?
I was married in 56.
Oh,
And I was married at the First Methodist Church at Lowell also. Marilyn and I both were baptized there also as children, and that's where our grandparents went to church also, as well as our parents. For a few months we lived on Riverside Drive, upstairs apartment of Walter Gumser.
Okay.
And from there, we moved out on to the little house where I grew up at, because my mother and dad moved down to Grandma and Grandpa's big house and was totally remodeling that.
oh,
And we lived in the little house for maybe 2 or 3 years, I believe it was, and then moved to Grand Rapids for a while for my husband's work, and bought our first home on Whitneyville Road in Cascade Township in '63, and had 4 children while living there. My husband had a heart attack and died at the age of 40, and I got a small home on Laraway Lake Drive, but the kids wanted to stay in the Forest Hills area, and so that's where I lived until a year ago, May. And but in 2010, I married Gerald Nestor, and my first husband was Donald Weeks, and but I married Gerald Nestor, who I'd met at church 25 years previous to that at my church at Cascade Christian Church. And so we had actually had 9 years of married life together, but we enjoyed lots of years of life together, 20-some years of life together before that.
that is very nice.
How many kids did you have?
I have 3 sons. Yeah. And the one middle son lives at the Rickert place on the Rickert farm, and my youngest son lives on Grand River Avenue, and Robin is my daughter-in-law, and the oldest son lives at Southfield.
And
Okay.
I have 4 children. I have 3 girls and 1 boy. 2 of the girls live here in Lowell, and daughter lives on M21, Saranac address, and my son lives on the corner of Pinckney Road and Sales Road. I have 12 grandchildren and 14 great.
I only have one.
How many do you have, Mom?
I have 10 grandchildren and 5 great.
Oh, my goodness.
But we're so fortunate
Yeah.
because our children live within reach, you know? They're not
Right.
across country. We're really fortunate.
When I was a senior in high school, I worked part-time at Frank's 5 and Dime store in Lowell,
Really? Oh, okay.
which was the former of Spring Grove.
I didn't know.
And then I just worked there for part-time. And then when I graduated, my mother says, now go to Lowell and apply for some jobs. So, and my training in high school was office work, secretarial. So I applied at different places. I applied at Runciman's and got hired. So I worked there for a year in the office. And I worked with Donna Johnson, Donna Berry, and Then I decided to go to Michigan State College at the time. So I had a scholarship that helped out, 4-H scholarship. And so I went there 2 years and lived in a co-op house that they had. It was run by the college. And in those days we had rules and, and a house mother. And then I ran out of money, so I left there. In Grand Rapids there was a housing for single women called Elmcrest. And so I lived there, and you lived there too.
Yes, I did.
And I got a job at for General Electric Apparatus Division. Their office was located in the McKay Tower, and this was at a time when, this was in '53, and it was when before the malls, when all the stores were downtown. So this was just wonderful.
How I could just imagine. I wish that I could take a peek back at when the shopping district was downtown Grand Rapids. How beautiful and marvelous.
Do you guys remember the old Wurzburgs with the
Oh,
Christmas?
yes.
Oh,
Oh, my
yes.
gosh.
Oh, you got any good stories on that?
And Herpelsheimer's.
Oh,
and-
Herpelsheimer's with the train.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that good stuff.
Yeah,
it was
something
wonderful.
I even once got to model an outfit for Wurzburgs. They wanted tall girls. so I applied, and I got a chance to model for them, and then we could buy the outfit at a reduced price. So that was fun.
What are your memories of being downtown?
My memories of
Of living downtown. or
okay, when I graduated from high school, again, get a job, and I got a job working for Buckeye Insurance in the office. I worked there for 7 years, and then was home because I had a couple children, and then when I went back to work, I went to work at Amway, and worked at Amway for a few years, and then from Amway, I'm trying to think here. Then I worked for. They downsized at Amway, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Had to think here. Sorry about that.
No, you're
Oh,
fine.
big deal.
They downsized. We were on a second shift working in an office, word processing, and when they downsized, then I had a part-time job working for Dr. Klein Chiropractic in Cascade until I got a job at Crosby and Henry Insurance Agency, and I worked there for 21 years. Retired from there.
Oh my goodness.
So when I worked in Grand Rapids, they lived at Elmcrest for a few months, and then a couple of other gals and I got an apartment in one of the older homes up on Lafayette
Oh, in the
and
Heritage
Fountain
Hill
Street.
area.
Yeah, and then we would walk down to our work.
Yes.
And then when I was married, I was still working for General Electric, and by this time they were located out on Cherry Street, not far from college. But I didn't have, my husband had a car, he worked in Lansing, but I didn't have any transportation. So my mother-in-law worked at Newell's in Lowell. So I would ride with her to Newell's and wait in the car, and then I had a ride with somebody into Grand Rapids. And then in the evening, I took the shortway line bus, which came down Grand River Avenue. This was before the expressways. That came down Grand River Avenue, and you could ask it to stop wherever people wanted to get off. And so when they came by my mother-in-law's house, then I would get off there. And
That's unheard of. that
It's
you
grand-
can tell the bus driver where you want to get off at.
Yeah.
Because that's not the rules
But
today.
Grand River
Oh, no.
Avenue, Grand River Avenue was the main route from Grand
It
Rapids to
was.
Detroit before the
Yeah.
I
expressway.
did not know that.
You know,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
Well, and too, on 21, you know, if you took a bus like.
We
from-
did when we went home on weekends
Yeah.
from living at Elm Crest.
Yeah.
I can still picture us walking down that
Well,
Fulton
and
Street Hill
sometimes,
with our suitcase.
but sometimes we could flag them down and they would stop right there.
Sometimes they would, yeah,
Yeah.
instead of going to the Greyhound bus. But
But-
because we were, no, probably because they were used to us or something.
I know growing up in Lowell, showboat was a big deal in the summer. Do you have any showboat stories?
Oh my
for you?
gosh, yeah.
Any good ones you'd like to share, or any?
I was going to go back to just just quickly in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, that's fine.
We never brought up Ramona Park. Ramona Park was that was a big thing when we were living like at Elm Crest and had our apartments. You get the cherry bus, it would take you right out there to Ramona Park because nobody had cars. None of us had cars, and we'd go to Ramona Park. It was one of the greatest places. In the boat, and Mom and Dad dated was on that boat. They rode on that boat, yeah. So that's briefly, I just wanted to stick that in
I'm
there.
so glad you shared that with us.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. Big blue racer, roller coaster, and the merry-go-round that was inside the building, and the slides, which I was scared to death to go on.
Yeah, me too.
Bless your heart.
You sit on a
That's
gunny.
good thing.
You would sit on a gunny sack, seriously, and it just go
really?
straight down. Yeah, yeah.
What showboat? Go
Our
ahead.
showboat.
Yes. Do you have any showboat stories for us?
Well, when I played in the high school band, then the high school band played. We're on the boat and played as it came down the river.
Yep.
And
So
that,
you were on that, playing your trombone.
yep,
Oh, cool.
that was fun.
And I played the bass clarinet,
Oh, you did.
and
and you're in that picture that's
I'm
in.
at the Kaiser's. From my class, my era, we're in that picture, the picture that's shown up there, and riding down on the Robert E. Lee.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a great time. And when they took the boat back up, if you were in town, you could ride the boat back up. Did you ever do that?
No, I didn't. I lived on Riverside Drive and never.
Really?
But we always got to see the parades coming up.
Okay.
Because everybody walked up to get on the boat.
Yeah.
With the skirts, the Southern bells, and all.
Sure,
the, and all
the choir, it was
yeah,
great.
The choir and,
Oh my gosh, it was a great time. I remember coming down around Cattail Bend and get hung up on an island. And Rudy Cardenas, I think that was his name, and he climbed up on this one light pole and tried to entertain people while we got it on. Well, the guys tried to get it away from the sandbar. Just neat, simple things like that. And you know that boat was only run by several different outboard motors, just guys, 4 guys running it. I remember Jim Heim was one of them. He was grade school, and his sister Norma and I, we've been friends, like coming from the country school. Norma and I connected, and we've been friends ever since, and she lives right next door to me, right here. So it's just a great
It is
relationship.
a good and great community.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Marilyn?
About my what?
What about yourself? What about the
You got any
showboat?
showboat?
Well, I really, other than the high school one, when I worked at Runciman's, Mr. Runciman was kind of in charge of the amateur program.
Yeah.
And so I had to go be with him to do the paperwork for, whenever they had the tryouts. So that was kind of fun and interesting. And he would always give us tickets to go to the showboat.
You remember any stars that you saw that you remember or liked, or?
Dinah Shore.
Yeah.
Everybody brings that one up.
Tammy Wynette,
Milton Berle.
yeah, Louis Armstrong.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Eddie Peabody and his banjo.
Oh yeah. You remember you got to see him?
Yeah, yeah, all those
'Cause
different ones.
he was pretty regular. He was there probably 4 or 5 times
Yeah,
during the
great, just great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I worked at Runciman's, of course, Bill Jones worked there.
And he was
With his little horn.
yeah,
Yeah.
his little trumpet come out.
Yeah.
He had it in his hat.
Yeah.
He'd bring it out of his hat. Yeah.
He used to
Yeah.
play in a band, the Rose Ballroom up at Belding, and that's where all of us in high school age,
Yeah.
we'd go up there dancing, and they had a big ball that went around with the lights reflecting. And he'd get out there and open up that suitcase, and there's that little tiny trumpet, so cute.
Yeah.
Bruce McMahon was real good at. He had a sax too,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Right.
Yeah, Bruce
Right.
and Bill and
And Paul
Just-
Potter.
they were great.
Yeah.
Just, what a great group.
And speaking of dances, every Saturday night
yes.
we would go to a Grange dance. South Boston Grange had a dance on Saturday night, and then the opposite night, Saturday, Keene Grange had it. Mm-hmm. So we would go to those and check out the boys and
Yeah,
see.
you're right.
You're right. Check out.
And
the
they always
boys.
had good hot beef sandwiches. I mean, not Hamburg ground up, but really hot beef shredded.
Ooh.
Just
Yeah.
neat.
And once in a while, we would get, because see, by this time I was driving.
Oh, thank God.
And once in a while, we wanted to go over to Banner Grange, but they had kind of a bad reputation.
Oh,
And
what
so
was
we
that?
would
They did.
get permission to go, but we had to promise not to go outside until we, were ready to leave. Mm-hmm.
Because there was drinking going
Yeah.
on over there.
I was just saying,
They
what's
were.
outside? Oh.
so that place in Belding was a pretty hot spot for you
Oh
guys.
yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was really nice there.
Did they have any
was.
real big bands come in like Glenn Miller or any of those guys?
No,
No, it was
just this
just that
group.
Bill Jones,
yeah,
the
yeah,
local guys.
but just great music there.
But the guys would come from all over,
Oh my gosh, yes.
college
Oh,
guys, and
oh, that was a good spot to be, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
But after I was married and then eventually had my first son, then I quit work.
Oh, okay.
So I just stayed home to be a mom and a farmer's wife.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And so I did that for 8 years. But then it became quite apparent that there ought to be more income in the family. So by this time, there's 2 more kids had arrived, and so I applied for work at Amway, and I hadn't really, been doing that kind of work for the 8 years, but I had to take a typing test, and I passed it, and they hired me that day. So then I had to get babysitting arrangements made, and so my job was transcribing letters for the sales department and whoever else needed that kind of work done. and
Okay.
and I ended up working there for 29 years.
Wow.
And the first 5 years was hourly, and then after that I became supervisor of word processing.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
For 20. Now, so you were at Amway for 29 years. And how long were you at Amway?
I believe I was only at Amway maybe, was it a year even or so?
But didn't you work for Jim Rooker?
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I worked for Jim Rooker on, I worked for him probably for a year and a half or 2. I was
Yeah.
Jim Rooker's secretary. He was with Ada Warehouse. And then I quit for health reasons, and I was home with the kids. And then when I went back to work, that was after the kid's dad passed away.
Okay.
And then I was, I have been working since then.
Goodness.
Yeah, but I was home with my children, raising them in between, prior to the deaths. So
Now,
it was,
you two ladies, though, have really worked all your lives. Come on. You
Pretty much.
grew up in a farm.
but we've
and
always
worked
had,
there.
and we've always, we still do. We
Yes.
always have. We don't have a garden anymore, but we still I used to always can everything, and Marilyn did too,
Yeah, and
or freeze it. And right now we still do a few things.
Well, I heard that you were canning applesauce yesterday.
yes,
Yeah.
at my house.
At
Yeah.
your house?
Yeah,
Well, it's too bad we didn't have some here.
I
before.
know. I told
40.
Robin that I better sneak over there and see if I could grab one of those jars. So.
42 jars they had,
Oh my goodness. Still to this
pint
day.
jars.
42 pint jars.
Yep.
Now, are you two ladies still busy with your volunteering? So I know, Marilyn, that you're one of the key workers over there at the Saranac Depot.
Yeah, it's a Boston Saranac Historical Society.
Oh my goodness. And how long have you been there
Well,
volunteering?
I retired from Amway in '94, and I think I was doing a few things before that. But
Are you on the board there then for the Saranac Historical Society?
not at the moment, but I have been in the past. I've been president and historian and
Cool.
secretary, whatever.
Now, what days are they open?
During the summer months from May until September, second and fourth Sundays from 1 to 4. And we do like special appointments if people want, but right now we're closed.
Okay, during the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes. And how about yourself, Shirley? Where are you volunteering at?
At church,
Oh,
pretty
good.
much at church. Yeah.
Okay. And what are you doing there?
Well, we have soup and sandwich 2 times a month, and I help make cakes prior to the soup and sandwich.
Yummy.
And any other time, I did work at the Second Mile House, but I haven't gone back to that since my husband passed away.
Okay.
Second Mile House is where we give out food and had clothing for anyone in need.
Wow. Well, thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
I do need to tell you both that it's such a honor to have this interview with the two sisters that shared so much history and such great stories of growing up on the farm, and you two still looked out after each other. It's great to see to this point in your lives that you're both looking after each other and telling each other, you still mean a lot. And in this day and age, this is a lesson that all of us need to take home with us too, because gosh darn it, and like my mom would say, in the bitter end, Tina, family's all you got left. And she was right about that.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that you sharing your story with us. Us that, the rest of the community in Lowell, we're going to enjoy knowing where you came from and where the farm is at. And you ladies are on top of it. You really did see a lot, and you achieved a lot too.
Thank you.
I really do thank both of you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
There's, I think things when we were in our country school, some things that we didn't cover, which was so wonderful in our growing up. And part of that was that we even had a pastor that would come through to the school, and he would speak to us, and we each would get a little New Testament Bible. And we always said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag in the morning, and sang songs in the morning, looked after each other. It was like a big family.
I gotta ask one more question. You guys never fought, did you?
Maybe doing dishes.
Yeah.
We'd wet the wet towel like this, and I'd snap her. Yeah, love her to pieces. We don't know what we'd do without
No.
each other, would we?
No, we wouldn't.
Thank you guys.
Welcome.